This is The Five.
Hey, we've got 7 years to go, folks. You know, we got a long time to go.
He gave us a sneak peek at CPAC. The president is not only making America great again, he's going to keep it great with another run in 2020. And today we learned who's going to take the helm of his re-election bid. His 2016 digital director, Brad Parscale, was named as campaign manager. He first worked with the Trump Organization, then helped bring the president's campaign to victory and went on to lead digital strategies for the RNC. Some exciting news for Trump supporters. Okay, so Dana, this is very early in announcing the re-election. What do you think the strategy behind that is?
Yeah. I don't know. Oh. I mean...
All right, Greg, what do you think?
I know. But go ahead.
I'm teasing. Go ahead.
Well, I think everybody knows President Trump's going to run again. I mean, it's not the first time that CPAC wasn't the first time that he's hinted at it. In fact, he keeps talking about how the media will, even though they can't stand him, they're going to end up voting for him so they can continue to have good ratings.
Right.
I do think that it could have been something that just structurally he wanted to send a message saying, I already have my person, so stop bugging me, like stop calling me and telling me that you're going to be my campaign chairperson, because I already have somebody in mind. And that way, giving Brad that title now quiets all of that, and they're going to have their work cut out for them. The American public usually gives a president a second term. It's very rare that they don't. In our lifetimes, there's really only Jimmy Carter, well, my lifetime, Jimmy Carter and
I was born
George
in 78.
H.W. Bush. And so you usually can get a second term. It is the path to the Electoral College is what's so important. The popular vote is going to be difficult for the president to get.
Right.
He didn't get it last time, but he was able to get the Electoral College. The Democrats are super invigorated, but they also are going to have probably 20 candidates, maybe more, that are going to basically water all that down. And what's different this time is that President Trump will have a record to run on. So it's not just, I might do this, I might do that. It's that I have done these things, and if you are a Republican, a conservative, you should be happy with these things.
And that's going to be tough to defend. It's better to be on the attack constantly. So,
also, can I add one other thing?
Sure.
The other thing that this does is it allows President Trump to continue to define himself before other people define him for 2020, and he can spend his time defining those other people in the ways that he does.
By calling them
I don't love
nicknames.
it, but he does it. Yes, exactly.
Greg, you're just happy he made the announcement because you wanted some fresh news at the top of the show.
Just before I get to my main point, why he did this, the name Brad Parscale is actually an anagram for Red Cabal's rap. So he's definitely a Russian spy.
Oh, okay.
He's a Red running a cabal to wrap up another election.
Okay.
All right.
Glad you got to the bottom of that.
Exactly. I get to the bottom of a lot of things, Kimberly, and here's why this matters. He is thinking beyond the sale. People are thinking about all this collusion stuff, you know, they're thinking about this. He's saying, nope. We're talking about the election. He's thinking beyond the sale. It's like, you know, when a real estate agent takes you to a house that's a little bit out of your range, and you walk into one room and then he goes, oh, couldn't you? This is definitely your home office. So they're thinking beyond the sale. They want you to be in the house psychologically. This is a perfect bonus room for your pool table. Of course, bonus rooms are terrible because that means relatives stay. So never get a bonus room. You just get a bonus relative. It's essentially trying to look behind whatever present conflict there is. If you're in a fight with your spouse, you start talking about the trip you're going to go on for your anniversary. So you're thinking always beyond the sale.
Right.
And that's what a salesman does to move beyond. And the thing is, it works. Because now people are going to be talking about this. They're interested in this guy. They're interested in the strategy, the fact that he's going to be implementing a social network strategy again, which is very controversial but very winning and is really important. So he's changing the game. This is what salesmen do.
And as Dana mentioned, Kimberly, he has a very large field in front of him. There's going to be a lot of names out there. I mean, how do you think that is going to impact the re-election? I think it's probably a little easier when you're running against such a crowded field.
Yeah, I think this was a very smart move. It doesn't surprise me that he did this. I'd heard that they were going to make some kind of, announcement, get some word out there, because also the midterm elections are coming up, and this really shores up the base and saying, okay, let's get fired up. This is a president who, despite what people were trying to say, wants to run for re-election. He's not, tired of it and being president frustrated. He actually wants to keep doing things and having accomplishments, including winning another term. So this way he can go out and have his surrogates as well, campaign essentially, fundraise, go out and support the people they need to win re-election in the midterms and really kind of shore up the base. Also, it kind of takes some distraction away from all these other investigations because, like Greg says, he's saying, okay, we're going to get through this because bottom line is I'm running and I'm going to win again.
And Juan Williams had a very provocative piece that was all over the internet the other day. You think 3 prominent black female Democrats can take out President Trump in 2020?
Well, I think they have the capacity, and that would be Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, and then, I mean, those two are really extraordinary because they're both in the Trump model as celebrities. Their political standing is a subset of their iconic status in American society. Kamala Harris, that simply has the big pockets of California behind her. But in all 3 cases, what's interesting to me is that you have women as kind of President Trump's kryptonite. And so women, overwhelmingly, black women, Latino women, and I think it's 43% of white women voted against Trump. So you get a strong, iconic female figure, and boy, I think that's why Trump went after her on...
You left out Maxine Waters. Why did you do that?
I don't think
she's an icon. Are you ageist? Is that what it is? Why not Maxine Waters? One, if you're going to do a trend,
Well, look, if you're in love with Maxine, I'll talk to her for you. But here's the thing. I think that President Trump is more interested in running a permanent campaign, and that's what he's doing.
I think President Obama was accused of doing the exact same thing.
Let me just say, there's no comparison. I mean, President Obama didn't announce that he was running until it was like 2 years before the next campaign. This guy announced on the inauguration day. By the way, I know for everybody who read the Drudge Report or is watching the show, say, oh, President Trump just announced that he's running. On inauguration day, he filed papers announcing that he was going to run
it was clear
again.
Too, Obama was running for re-election as well.
There's no comparison in terms of the time period. But the second thing to say is that when you look at Trump, he has raised $43 million in the last 2 years. That's 4 times more than Obama raised in his first 2 years. So you understand, this is a permanent campaign. He gets a kick out of running. He loves the rallies. Remember, after the November 16 election, he was holding rallies. He had his first campaign rally for 2020 a month after he was inaugurated.
So you're telling me that President Obama wasn't in love with campaigning? He was an amazing campaigner and a terrible leader.
I don't think he was a terrible leader, and obviously he got reelected.
One of the big knocks on President Obama was that he couldn't manage the government very well, and when he wasn't on the ballot, his party suffered. He was a great orator, and he loved giving these speeches.
I don't think there's any question
the same
about
type
President
of comparison
Trump.
except for the timing of the announcement.
If I was to draw a bottom line on what he did today, I would say, one, he loves campaigning. He loves the rallies. That's when he's at his happiest. He's not a governing guy. But the second thing to say is Hope Hicks was before the House Intelligence Committee. Are we talking about what's going on with Hope Hicks talking to investigate? No, we're talking about the distraction.
Well, speaking of investigations, Dana, I think Jeff Sessions said that he was going to open up an investigation into FISA abuses under the Obama administration. I think it's just basically investigation warfare going on at this point. Is this going to do anything?
That he welcomes this investigation, but there could be other needs for investigations, such as the State Department, in case this investigation that they're working on now turns up other funny business.
How was Trey Gowdy's hair when he made that?
Good.
Good?
Looking good, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Greg, what do you think about Investigation Gate?
I believe there's an investigation gate, and that bothers me. No, I was just thinking about announcing that I'm going to be running for re-election before I actually run for my first election.
Why?
I don't know, just for the heck of it. I want my library to be in San Mateo, California, across the street from Sarah High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What,
That's
you
all.
have to knock down anything to make sure?
Yes, you got to knock down a lot of stuff from my library.
what would be
Will
your
there be free
platform?
ribs?
There'll be free ribs. There'll be free ribs and no books.
Okay. Kimberly, Sessions looking into the FISA abuses. This whole thing's boomeranged on the Democrats, if you ask me. We have an unmasking memo that's about to drop, and that's not going to be pretty for a lot of the Obama officials allegedly involved, like Samantha Power and Susan Rice. Do you think he can make any headway, or is this going to just get lost in all the text memo investigation kerfuffle?
No, I think people are going to pay attention to it because there's been quite a lead up, to this point, and there's been a lot of vocal pressure in the media and from people and from Trump supporters to examine this, especially given the fact that Democrats started this. They opened up this can of worms and made these accusations, and now this is follow through. And follow through eventually leads to justice. So we'll see here what happens. He's doing his job. He should be doing this. He'd be derelict in his duty if he did not follow through on it. And then what we need to do is cover it.
All right, Juan, last word.
Well, I just love what Kimberly said. Investigations lead to justice.
Okay, maybe we can investigate Sheriff Israel. I think that might be a good idea. All right, President Obama caught on tape engaging in revisionist history about his time in office. Up next.
Let's admit it, America. We miss Barack Obama.
Juan does.
There he is. In a recent speech, he said he had no real scandals in his White House, a jab at Trump.
We didn't have a scandal that embarrassed us. I know that seems like a low bar. Generally speaking, you didn't hear about a lot of drama inside our White House.
No drama. So to quote the TSA officer whose dog just sniffed my carry-on, let's unpack this. So why didn't you hear much about O's White House? Well, who was brave enough to look? There was never a cozier relationship between a president and the media, ever. If the White House were a bed, the press was the mutt dozing at the foot of it. Thank God Obama didn't eat it. Classic. So the media voluntarily took an 8-year sleeping pill with his liver snap, only to wake up when Obama's policies led to the rejection of his party and the election of Trump. Then no longer Obama-tose. They sprung to action. And it wasn't like there were no scandals under Obama. DOJ, IRS, Benghazi. The media's bar was so high in terms of interest, however, they didn't exist. So now you have a woke press chasing down any incident where Trump has a burger whose center is in hot pink. Now, the funny part is Obama's speech was at a conference where participants were ejected if they shared any part of it. So, you want to know why you never heard about Obama? There's your answer. Compliance. Compare that to Trump's White House, the most transparent entity since the invention of Scotch tape. And still the press scrambles after him as if they're making up for lost time. It's like watching a fat man climb a mountain after a lifetime of couch surfing and pizza. No wonder they want a Democrat in 2020. They could use the rest. Isn't it true, Dana, that Obama's lack of scandals were not about scandals, but a compliant press that allowed him to operate in total secrecy?
Well, having been a Republican press secretary, I would say, yes, Republican communicators always have to work harder.
Yes, that is true.
But I also think one of the things Obama said is there were no scandals that embarrassed us. If you're not capable of embarrassment, then that would be true.
Ooh,
the other thing is that it is true that there is less drama.
Yes.
Okay, there was less drama in the Obama administration. If you're looking at sort of personnel announcements and the backbiting in the first 8 months of the Trump administration, but drama isn't necessarily a scandal.
Exactly.
The other thing, my final point.
Unless it's scandal.
That's true.
Good one.
The other thing is that all of the Obama people that worked for him, they have said this from the beginning, and even as he ended his presidency, the one thing they were so proud of is that they had no scandals. And it became a rote talking point.
Yeah.
And no scandals is the new no collusion. Everybody says it over and over again as if this is like going to finally sink into all of our heads.
You know, Jesse, I remember especially MSNBC, if you did criticize President Obama, you were racist.
Yeah.
So that was a really good immune bubble to keep any criticism or anybody from actually looking into anything going on.
It's very effective. I think you glossed over a pretty big Obama scandal, Greg.
What?
The birth certificate. I mean, that was huge. That obviously was a forgery. And he pulled one over on the American people. I mean, I think Arpaio is still getting to the bottom of
Nothing
that.
can resuscitate you after
Did a
that.
brother get a heart shot? This You won't give up on the birther.
I'm teasing.
Oh,
Juan.
my God.
We believe it's real.
Oh.
I believe him. I believe him. If he says he won, I'm teasing.
Oh, gosh.
I think you're right, though. It's all about the press. Because this is what the press said about Benghazi. It was a Republican conspiracy. They didn't protect one of their own ambassadors on the anniversary of 9/11 after warning signs, then lied about it. And that's a Republican conspiracy. They said the IRS scandal was bipartisan. Even though 95% of the groups that were targeted were conservative. They said the Iran deal was great diplomacy when we shipped them a bunch of cash that wound up in Hezbollah's hands. And then they said about Fast and the Furious, that happened under the Bush administration, even though it absolutely did not. So we're even passing over Solyndra. We're passing over
I loved that
the
one.
Bergdahl trade.
We did 6
I
months.
love Solyndra.
$500 million in taxpayer money. The VA scandal.
Yeah, oh my-
People died, and government bureaucrats got bonuses. So I found a list of what the New York Times says are Trump scandals. Are you ready for these?
Okay.
Kellyanne Conway promoted Ivanka's fashion line on TV. Government officials stayed in Trump hotels. If that's the bar, I mean, come on, anything's a scandal.
Yo, that's a good point. I forgot about the VA and Solyndra. We did like months
I
on
love Solyndra.
Solyndra.
We had a whole graphic and music.
Where is that? We should
Solyndra
bring
was like
it
a
back.
soap opera.
Let's do Solyndra flashback.
Yeah, you know, Juan, what I learned from President Obama, my life would be easier if I was a liberal. Because no one questions your competence. Right?
Is that right?
Yes.
Is that
I
right?
should be a liberal.
You should be.
My life would be
Yeah.
easier.
Well, you'd have a hard time here at Fox.
You are on every show.
Because I think
You are on every show.
I think that Fox was absolutely vigorous in pursuing every Benghazi IRS
Fair and
scandal
balanced, we had
involving-
to.
Oh, fine. That's legit. But I'm just saying, you say, oh, that's a scandal. Let me tell you, there's a
covering
difference
these stories,
between
too.
nitpicking, pimples,
Ew.
and stumbling, and a huge rock falling on your head and crushing you.
Yeah.
And that rock is 19 people indicted, including 13 Russians, right? That's 5 people who
They
pled
don't-
guilty.
they don't work for
and
Trump.
Oh, no, they weren't in
by
the
the
Trump
way, and they're
campaign.
not even
They
living
weren't in the
in
Trump
Russians?
campaign.
Guys, they're
no,
not
I
even
think they
living
were.
in
Did any Trump
I
official plead the 5th one or
I
destroy
see.
evidence?
What about,
I haven't heard
how
anybody
about
yet.
a national security advisor who says he's lied? How about Trump in the Oval Office talking to Russians about national secrets? Oh, God.
What about Reverend Wright?
I'll tell you what. That's where you go. How about
Chickens
this?
come home to
You
roost.
talk about what's going on. You know, I still don't know what happened in Niger. You talk about Benghazi. In Niger, we got 4 people dead. No report yet. Nothing. I'm thinking to myself, you're dealing with somehow, you know, how about Rob Porter and beating up wives? Oh, yeah, you can stay. No, oh, boy, imagine if that was imagine if Obama was had his personal lawyer paying off porn stars. Oh, my God.
That would be impressive. Kimberly, last word to you.
Michelle wouldn't let
That
him
would be
out.
interesting, actually, for a lot of reasons. Pardon?
Yes, last word to you,
Okay, so
my friend.
I think that it's important that you have to cover all of it. We're covering the Mueller investigation. We're covering FISA warrants, how they were obtained, the propriety of it, the ethics behind it, the facts and substance behind it. So when you see what we did here, we covered everything in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Whether it was Solyndra, whether it was Benghazi, whether it was Fast and Furious, whether it was Lois Lerner and the taxes and all of the above. There was a plethora of things that needed to be discussed, and so I wouldn't take back any of it. I would, in fact, do it the way we did it.
Damn straight. All right, President Trump's signature campaign promise is one step closer to reality. That's next.
I want to be so close. You can win.
California has bucked his immigration agenda, but President Trump is expected to make a trip there to look at prototypes for his border wall. His first visit in office to the state is scheduled for mid-March. Meanwhile, a U.S. district judge once criticized by the president ruled in favor of his wall today. Gonzalo Curiel ruled the administration can continue waiving environmental laws to proceed. That news comes as the DACA debate rages on.
We thought that the president's main goal was to build a wall from sea to shining sea, a 19th century answer to a 21st century problem.
Right.
It turns out his goal is the deportation of dreamers.
So immigration still big, and Jesse, Mark Meadows, the congressman from North Carolina, has told Speaker Paul Ryan that they must vote on the Goodlatte bill or else his speakership could be in danger. So there's lots of movement on immigration.
There is, but the judge's ruling on DACA definitely takes a little leverage away from the president when he negotiates the wall. But the wall will be built. It'll be beautiful, and Mexico, Juan, will still pay for it. Just so everybody knows, there's about a 2,000-mile border with Mexico and the United States. Because of the Rio Grande and the mountains and all that stuff and the virtual fence, you only really need about 800 miles of border wall. There's already 500 miles constructed. They want to improve upon that and add an additional 300. Now, the Tucson sector chief says when they put the fence up, illegal crossings dropped to 95%. But what that does is it pushes it down to another sector. So it pushed it to the Yuma sector where you're seeing a lot of illegal crossings. The prototypes look good, though. They're about 24 to 30 feet high. You're going to be able to see through them, and they're impenetrable. You had U.S. Special Forces try to scale them, blowtorch through them. They couldn't do it. It became so dangerous, the testing, that they had to stop doing it. And he's going to go down there, and he's going to try to, you know, like an architect would try to look at the specs and take a look, and he's going to have maybe a hard hat on, and it's going to be a great photo op, but it looks like it's making progress.
Yeah, I think more than a photo op, Juan, and especially with this judicial ruling that they can move forward, because the environmentalists have tried to stop progress on a lot of these construction projects, and not just at the border, but across the country. But Curiel saying it's a go.
No, Curiel said there's no basis for the courts to stop it.
Right.
I think the politics is a whole different box of wax. And by the way, I think the Mexican president had just had a very difficult conversation with President Trump about paying for the wall. It was so difficult. Again, for the second time, he's canceled the trip to visit the White House.
Could be a language issue.
Oh, it's a language issue.
There's still ways to pay for it.
It could be.
I think
you know
that's right.
You know what strikes me is you had like 200 Catholic nuns, priests in Russell protesting, singing, standing up for the Dreamers. People saying this is just not acceptable. You saw out there just a moment ago Dick Durbin, the #2 Democrat in the Senate, saying what appears now is that the president is just trying to stop the Dreamers, because it's not only the Dreamers, he's trying to cut legal immigration.
But
that would be the result of merit-based immigration.
But Kimberly, do you think that even though this deadline now is not really looming about the Dreamers, do you think the president, which we haven't heard from him yet, is he going to try to continue to try to push Congress to do something this year? Or wait for the courts to play it out?
Look, I think he's got to continue to try to push Congress. The courts are going to do what they're going to do. Today, this was a victory for the president coming from Judge Curiel. And it certainly is. The courts aren't going to stop it. California had been quite vocal in trying to stop the president on environmental grounds from getting the wall up. But this is really symbolic, I think, of President Trump's, not only just his campaign, but his presidency, that he made this promise. It's actually like a physical, tangible thing that people can go and look at to say, okay, he made this promise. He's running for re-election. He's announced it. He better get that wall up and start it. So I think that's why we're seeing such focus and emphasis on it. And then it has the tie-in piece, as you aptly point out, with DACA and with immigration. And I think he's going to try to be compassionate about it and work with both sides. And they're going to get boxed in again if they don't try to come to the table and at least meet him part way on it.
But if this is about politics, Kimberly, just say it. It's not about national
I think this
security.
is what he believes, and I think it is about national security. I think that's a big piece of what he campaigned on, that we have to make America safe again, that we have to make American borders, that aren't penetrable, that aren't porous, that people aren't coming in, that are criminal recidivists, that are taking, hiding in sanctuary cities, taking cover, and then committing crimes against Americans, legal citizens, etc. There's a path to citizenship. There's a way to do this. You should do it like everybody else did, and you shouldn't come in here and try and cut the line and commit crimes and get back and forth because we don't enforce the laws that are on the books. Put up the wall and tighten it up.
No, when
Greg,
you
maybe
said,
I was going to get Greg in here before we have to go. Maybe California secretly wants the wall. They'll have to say they don't want it, but inside they're thinking this might not be a bad idea.
All it is really is a vertical highway. I mean, it's just a highway that you just push up. If we had sold it as a highway, that would have been a better idea. Not a wall. That was my original.
Highway to nowhere?
Yeah, but the thing is, if Trump plays this right, he is proving that the Democrats don't see people at all. They just see power. Because what he's actually doing is something very compassionate. There's nothing better than a wall. Good fences make good neighbors, and legal, lawful immigrants should appreciate that. All he's saying is he wants an enforced system, and 1.7 million people can stay. That's pretty compassionate. Yep. What the Dems are saying is the Dreamers can dream on because it's not coming from us. The Democrats are ticked off because he might come up with the solution and reverse a false perception that the Democrats have capitalized forever, that they are compassionate and that Republicans aren't compassionate. And if Trump ends up becoming the pro-dreamer, the pro-immigrant, that's going to reverse a polarity that's been around for a long time. And it could be a really big deal. And it helps that there is no deadline. I really do think that helps.
You do?
Well, I can't decide. I'm of mixed mind on that, and I will continue to think about it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it
again, we could sell California to Mexico.
Everybody loves that. All
Larry
right, some
Kudlow liked that
companies have severed ties with the NRA after the Parkland school massacre, but FedEx isn't caving to that pressure. That's next.